I'm Turk Strongman, current resident at Mind Voltage Institute. We're working our way through L.W. deLaurance's The Master Key. We are in part 4 now, chapter 23, lesson 21, Will Culture and Mind Training. And we are up to subsection Desire and Motive. Before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, go ahead and do it right now. Activate the notification bell feature at the same time to be apprised of our new uploads, that is. Also, like and share this video. And make note of the donation by PayPal information in this video's description area, just below your media player window right now. Desire and motive. Desires and motives play an important part in volition. Therefore, you should attempt to get a rough idea of what is meant by these terms. A desire is commonly regarded as an uneasy sense of want, a longing for something which craves for satisfaction. But a desire is more than this. It is also more than an impulse. For in real desire, we are always conscious of the end we seek. The origin of a desire may be physical or mental, either one, but it is always a mental or psychical process. It is important to note that the strength of a desire lies not in itself, but in the totality of desires which go to make up a person's character. Thus, if you have a sudden desire to steal, this single desire will have no force unless it is associated with other desires in your being which tend to support it. Again, you may have a desire for learning, but to be a learned man. But if the dominant desires of your nature are for ease or enjoyment, your desire for learning will have little chance in a conflict with these stronger desires. Excuse me. Okay. Where are we now? A motive. A motive now is more than a desire. A desire may be a quasi-impulse to act, but a motive is that which induces you to act. You may desire wealth and get no further, but if wealth becomes a motive, it leads you to act in such ways as will result in the attainment of wealth. Motives may be either good or bad, but in either case, their objective is something you hope to achieve. You conceive an end and you work for this end. It is not always easy to know or distinguish your real motives for acting in a certain way. And in nothing do you deceive yourselves so much as when you say your motive for doing a thing was so and so. It is only when you come to analyze your motive that you find there is something totally different. You will find it something totally different from what you thought it was. Again, excuse me. Suggestion. Suggestion is of vital importance in understanding the volitional process. Suggestion. Consider for a moment the part it plays in your life. A great scientist announces that apples contain an element which is the true elixir of life, and forthwith thousands of people on the strength of this statement commence eating apples. A fashion paper announces that a certain color will be the vogue in the coming season, and thousands of ladies order their dresses accordingly. A music teacher has certain little mannerisms in playing, and all his pupils tend to copy these as part of his system. A medical student conceives that his professor, in going through the wards, has a perfect bedside manner, so he adopts this unhesitatingly when he gains a practice of his own. The writer need not extend the list here. If you reflect a little, you will be convinced that everyone in some way is influenced by suggestion. Suggestion seems to be rooted in the innate tendency of animals to imitate or copy the actions of other animals. Goodness, excuse me one more time. Just as we can hardly think of a movement without some attempt to carry it out. So when we see other people doing a certain act that appeals to us, we feel the impulse to follow their example. Watch a football crowd and you will notice how the crowd breaks out into a movement. when the players get the ball away. Note in yourself the impulse to run when you see in a rugby game a three-quarter back rush down the field with the ball. Similarly, when seated in a cab hurrying to catch a train, many people can hardly resist the impulse to be up and doing, and you will find them in continual motion all the way to the train. Suggestion is a process of communication resulting in the acceptance with conviction of the communicated proposition in the absence of logically adequate grounds for its acceptance. Again, suggestion is a process of communication resulting in the acceptance with conviction of the communicated proposition in the absence of logically adequate grounds for its acceptance. Liability to suggestion depends on the following factors. If the suggestion is made by a person, its power over you will depend upon, first, the strength of the personality of the one making the suggestion. Second, his relations to you. Third, the degree of your knowledge involved in the suggestion. Fourth, your receptiveness at the time when the suggestion is made. Under the first one, the strength of the personality of the one making the suggestion. Note that personality is a complex. Some people impress you by the manner in which they make a suggestion. It may be conveyed in an impressive manner or by a hint, a gesture, a command. Personality, again, passes into the second, his relations to you. Your relation to the person making the suggestion, whether as superior in position or intelligence, employer, teacher, friend. Clergymen and doctors may be taken as types of relational suggestion. If your doctor says you look better, well, then you feel better. Note, too, the part the instinct of assertiveness plays in relational suggestion. If you feel you are in the presence of your inferiors, as regards position, influence, wealth, learning, the impulse to assert yourself becomes dominant. Whereas in the presence of your superiors, the instinct is self-repression, the keep in the background feeling. That tends to manifest itself. The degree of your knowledge, that being the third, the degree of your knowledge involved in the suggestion. The degree of your knowledge or convictions in any subject will be the measure of your suggestibility in that subject. You will understand this better if you reflect how readily children accept a suggestion owing to the limitations of their knowledge. If a suggestion is in agreement with your convictions, it has you in its power at once. Your receptiveness, that's the fourth one now. Your receptiveness at the time when the suggestion is made. Your receptiveness in suggestion varies greatly according to time, place, and circumstance. If you are tired, suggestions to give up what you are doing will have great weight with you. A suggestion to reform, which in a suggestion to reform, which in ordinary circumstances would have no weight, becomes well nigh irresistible when made by a popular preacher from his pulpit. I will now consider briefly the circumstances under which suggestions come to you, not from a person, but from outside influences. Such are books, newspapers, travel, advertisements, plays. The power of suggestion here will be your receptiveness at the time and your degree of knowledge of the subject. These non-personal suggestions play an important part in one's life. It would hardly be too much to say that they exercise a greater power over us than personal suggestions. For often a suggestion from a person is marred by some mannerism on his part which arouses instincts antagonistic to it. Types of will. The part played by type is one of the most interesting sections in the study of will. I shall briefly describe 10 main types of will. The impulsive type. This is the commonest of all types of will. It acts on the spur of the moment without regard to consequences. It is dominated by the instincts, refuses to listen to reason, and in consequence often plunges its possessor into disaster. Next, the imperative type. The imperative or commanding type is dominated by the instinct of assertiveness. It demands everything to give way to it and seeks to bend everything to its purpose. It differs from the impulsive type in that its ends are clearly marked out and the means necessary thereto generally well conceived. The confident type. This type is closely allied to the impulsive. It is distinguished therefrom by a belief in its ability to execute anything it undertakes. It regards success as certain, yet often fails through neglecting to take the means necessary to success. It is apt to jump to conclusions, disregard data, and rely on chance to carry it through. It must not be confounded with the confidence which is rooted in experience and knowledge now. The contrary type. Many children display this type in a marked degree. They delight in acting contrary to instructions and advice. It is prominent also in some men who seem to think its possession is a mark of superiority or a higher degree of intelligence. Its possessor is not to be envied, for it sets the back up of everyone who comes into contact with it, and some people term this type the spirit of pure cussedness. Every man who seeks for success and recognizes that he belongs to the contrary type should recognize that he is running the race with needless weight. The automatic type. Businessmen are familiar with this type, the routine type. It tends always to work in familiar paths. If a thing has to be done, it must be done on old lines. It never seeks novel or better ways of doing things, and indeed distrusts any departure from custom. It is almost entirely the creature of habit. The unconscious type. And it seems a contradiction to speak of any type of will as an unconscious type. Yet, you will all understand what is meant by this if you consult the annals of genius. The genius feels an innate power spurring him on he knows not where. You will readily recognize this element when you speak of his work as the result of his genius. Many who are not geniuses have felt a touch of this hidden subliminal power. They set out to do a thing, not very confident of success, yet the result may be a brilliant success. You speak of it afterwards by saying, I worked better than I knew. The fatalistic type. This type works under peculiar conditions. If a thing is to be a success, it will be a success. If it is not to be a success, it will not be a success. Often this type recognizes that reason is against its mode of working, but it shuts its eyes to the fact and keeps to its course. The indecisive type. Everyone will know this type. Everyone will recognize it. We have perhaps all belonged to it at some time or another. It conceives an end and the means to an end, but almost immediately other ends are conceived which negate the former. The mind wavers between ideas, and very often the project gets no further than the initial stage. And then there's the thoughtful type. This type makes everything subject to reason. Nothing must be decided upon until it has been carefully worked out. It is often marked by indecision or fatalism if the thought is unduly prolonged. The ideal type, our last type, 10th one. The ideal type. It is important that you should get rid of the habit of thinking of the ideal as something too good to be true. You should regard it rather as the principle which determines your actions. The ideal type, then, is distinguished from the other types in that it seeks to make use of everything that will help its purpose. It understands and makes use of its impulses. It knows when to assert itself. Its confidence is based on its own powers, correlated with its past experiences and knowledge. It knows when to differ from an opponent and is not above correction. It knows what part in action can be left with safety to automatism, and it knows also the value of a careful, thoughtful review before acting. This is the type I commend to you to take as your guide in the volitional process. The freedom of the will. You are suddenly faced with a temptation to steal. You have two alternatives: to obey the impulse or to dismiss it. Determinists or necessitarians hold that whichever way you choose is determined by laws over which you have no control. Your present decision is the result of your past decisions. It represents your present circumstances, your past history, and your character as a whole. Libertarians or indeterminists hold that in the moment of decision, your power to choose the one or the other alternative is equal, no matter what your past has been or the nature of the present conditions. It is now generally recognized that these two schools of writers simply represent opposite sides of the same truth, and that the idea of self-determinism combines the two sides. You are free to act in as far as yourself will allow you. There is nothing outside of you forcing you to act contrary to your inclination. The resistance, if there be any, comes from within you. The above will enable you to understand what is meant by circumstances. They are not mere external conditions. They are only circumstances in an ethical sense insofar as they affect your lives. In conditions or circumstances common to two men, one will perhaps be affected by them and the other untouched. We all bring something into our circumstances, and our circumstances have power over us only insofar as that something is in sympathy with them. In our next video, we will move to chapter 24, lesson 22, education of the will, beginning with subsection, how to commence the education of the will, beginning thusly. Students who desire to cultivate their willpower should first be sure that they have made a deep study of lesson 21, as lesson 22 here is dependent upon it, and will not be understood without reference to it. We just covered that. Therefore, we're going to go into the next video ready with what we know from lesson 21. Before I go, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please take a moment right now to do that, and at the same time activate the notification bell feature to be apprised of our new uploads here at Mind Voltage Institute. Please like and share this video and make note of the donation by PayPal information in this video's description area immediately below your media player window right now. I'm Turk Strongman, current resident at Mind Voltage. See you in the next video. Be well.